An Aryan brother is without a care. He walks where the weak and heartless won't dare. And if by chance he should stumble or lose control, his brothers are there to help reach his goal. For a worthy brother, no need is too great. He need not ask, fulfillment's his fate. For an Aryan brother, death holds no fear. Vengeance will be his, through his brothers still here. For the brotherhood means just what it implies. A brother's a brother till that brother dies. And if he is loyal and never lost faith, in each brother's heart will always be a place. So a brother I am, and will always be, even after my life is taken away from me. I'll lie down content, knowing I stood, head held high, walking proud in the brotherhood.
People that are older and know what time it is know it's just business.
Yeah. Greetings and welcome back once again. It's your host, Gabe Morales. We've been covering Aryan Brotherhood members over the past 6 decades or so. Today we're going to cover the M last names, as in modified program. For any of you who've been to prison, know that after a big lockdown, corrections officials usually will go into a modified lockdown. In other words, controlled feeding, perhaps a little more yard time, a little more day room at a time to see how the convicts act before they let them resume full normal programs. I can't imagine how they do it now with these new integrated yards in California. From what I hear from officers, it's a major mess. I'll start off first with Ricky Manson, aka Capone, who had E numbers in Edward 10400. I show he was an AB associate and had attempted escape in November 2002, whereby I believe he was placed at Pelican Bay, where this picture was taken. However, I show he is no longer in CDC custody. There was Edward Gino Mayer, who is said to be one of the original Aryan Brotherhood members under A number as an alpha. 39435. If you recall when I talked about Red Fenton and Eddie Vaughn, he was another one who participated in the takeover at Folsom Prison in November 1962. There's some that say that this is when the Aryan Brotherhood was actually formed, but I haven't heard that from any other sources other than this one source that does some pretty good research. Personally, I think he's guessing. The date that I've heard the most from experts and from Sergeant Bill Hankins himself is January 1967. But definitely these three, Red Fenton, Eddie Vaughn, and Gino Mayer, along with the Shrecking Ghost brothers, were a major force even before the Aryan Brotherhood got started. There was Jack Red Mahone. I've also heard some people pronounce it Mahoney. Regardless, I understand that Mahone is a Gaelic word which means bear, and I am told that Mahone was Irish and had reddish hair, thus the nickname Red. It is said that Red Mahoney also influenced the AB, also referred to as the brand, to use the shamrock as one of their identifying symbols. And he was also close to Rick Manier, who I understand was also Irish. I believe he was brought up in the Bakersfield area and first hit CDC with A numbers in Alpha 76402. I understand that he was one of the earliest Aryan Brotherhood members at Folsom Prison. And as I described in the last episode covering Wayne Bulldog Ladd, he was involved in the May 1971 protest at Folsom Prison after he and Ladd and another white convict, as well as 3 Chicano and 3 black convicts, were put in the hole, which would have been Folsom 4A building, for trying to organize a work stoppage. Again, if you've been on the inside, you know how it works. But convicts do a lot of the work as far as operations of the prison. In fact, there's some that state that it's forced labor, basically slavery. And I'm not going to get into the political or philosophical debate about that. But it sounds like they want to make San Quentin into Shangri-La today. So much for a deterrent. Red Mahone was allegedly shot and killed by Robert New York Crane's wife in Los Angeles in the late 1970s. Evidently, Blue felt that Mahone had become unstable, a little crazy and undependable for the brand, and ordered his death. Understand that Frank Ruapali and Norrison's wife Carol helped bury the body. Ruapali later gave up the body to police. Another individual said to be involved in that case was a then very young John Youngster Stinson. There was Michael A., a.k.a. Mickey Menier, who was born in San Antonio on October 6, 1948. However, his parents moved to the Sacramento County area after that, and I understand he got into trouble at a very early age. I show that he was first sent to CDC in the latter part of 1968, shortly after the brand formed, and that he was sent there on a burglary 2 conviction. He went to Folsom Prison and was very close to Jack Mahoney, as well as Bobby Galloway, Snuffy Smith, and Big Ron Perrin. Understand then he came back on a violation and was housed at the Folsom Ranch, which is minimum security, when he was listed as a walkaway in November of 1971 when he was 23 years old. He took off for a few months but was captured in nearby Auburn, California. Then he was sent behind the walls. No more minimum security for him. And you usually get extra time added on escape charge also. Understand then he was housed at Soledad on September 7th, 1972, when he stabbed Puerto Rican West Family member Julio Lugo once in the chest on the first tier of CTF North during breakfast release time. Lugo initially survived his attack but died in the Soledad Infirmary. And after that, there was a new code word when the Aryan Brotherhood or Mexican Mafia wanted to kill an NF member, and that was send him to Lugo's pad. Mickey must have got off that beef because I don't show on his record that he was convicted of a homicide or even assault by prisoner, and I show that he paroled in early 1976. On February 2nd, 1976, he was involved in a bank robbery in Alameda County, but was soon caught nearby. He then was arrested and housed at the Alameda County Jail, whereby the next day he attempted to hang himself. He initially survived, but died on February 5th. 1976, which according to my calculations would have made him about 28 years old at his death. As I go through this series, you probably have already heard quite a few guys, and we'll hear more, that lived that fast life, running in that fast lane, burned up, and suffered an early death. There was a Kerry Molasarte, who I understand was Aryan Brotherhood member in the BOP under number 96551-012. And I show that he was originally from the Riverside, California area, but was released in November 2002. I don't have a lot of information on him, so if anybody's heard of that guy, maybe you could school me. I'll briefly mention Charles Manson, who some called the Beast. This is a different beast than Dennis Harold Lawley, who is called the Beast of Revelations out of Modesto, Aryan Brotherhood member that I left out of the L last names just because the homicide case he allegedly was involved in I felt was way too complicated to cover just briefly. Charlie actually was a very small man, but he was able to manipulate his followers into committing murders for him. He was kind of a devil. I won't get into his early life, but if you're interested in that, I did a 3-part series on the Manson family where you can maybe see how he became so twisted in life. He was finally convicted after a carnival of a trial and given B numbers in Bravo 33920. As you may have heard, Charlie wanted to start a race war, and he had a close relationship to bikers and some Aryan Brotherhood types. And I think maybe he thought that he would just be welcomed with open arms. But it's my understanding that as soon as he got to Folsom Prison, he was told he had to stab a black, and he didn't want to do that. He was pretty scared, maybe even got punked, and he soon locked it up. Although Charlie was of no use to the Aryan Brotherhood, they did like his girls, and in order to keep Charlie safe, they would go in to visiting and perform sexual acts and smuggle in contraband to the brothers. But after Charlie locked it up, I understand that kind of activity started to drop off. There's Aaron Marsh, who I talked about in the last episode when I discussed Gary Luttrell. So I'm not going to get into too much details on him, although you may remember that he and Mike Tank Shepard killed Irish Mike O'Farrell of the Oakland Hells Angels chapter, which was a major move on their part and added to the animosity that the Hells Angels have had in more recent years with the Aryan Brotherhood. I show Larry Marsh, who's out of Los Angeles. I show that he was popped for assault with a deadly weapon in 1963, but had paroled about a year later. He then was popped for a robbery in 1965, whereby he was given A numbers in Alpha 90070. I show that he paroled by the late 1970s or early 80s, but got popped for dope in Texas in 1982. I then show that he was popped for a homicide in 1987, but had paroled in 1996. Evidently, after that, he stopped reporting, which is a requirement for these prison gangs when you're paroled to keep in touch with the brothers. And understand he was on a hit list for not following the rules. I show that he was popped on a dope charge in 2004 when I lost track of him. Next, I'll talk about Wayne Marshall, aka Bullet, who's out of Santa Ana, Orange County. I've had several people ask me about this guy, requesting to know my opinion if he was ever an Aryan Brotherhood member. Well, I can't say that I've ever seen a validation packet on him or his name appearing on a validated AB list. Also, usually in order to get into the Aryan Brotherhood to earn your rock, you have to commit a murder, but there have been occasional exceptions. And you always have to have an AB member in good standing sponsor you. Usually it takes a couple, but there's always exceptions there also. I do know of some that were made just on one person's word. However, he most definitely was at least an associate. He also was a figure in Public Enemy Number One. I show that Wayne Marshall's criminal record goes back to at least 1999. According to authorities who busted Marshall under Operation Stormfront in 2010, he was a shot caller inside the Orange County jail. And I've heard him give spills on other channels, and he definitely was in the mix, in my opinion. So there you go. I can't say that he never was, but I can't say for sure that he was an Aryan Brotherhood member. His wife was Ruthie, aka Mama Bear Marshall, and she often ran things for him when he was locked up in custody. While he was locked up in 2008, Ruthie Marshall passed along directions to other P9 gang members through a series of phone calls she had with her husband, as well as passing along kites and other messages so that the gang can conduct business on the streets of Orange County. According to police, they both attempted to enforce discipline on another individual named Jeremy Ball and lured him to a rundown motel and allegedly had him beat and pistol whipped as well as extorted. And he was told to cough up impound fees by P9, which is basically a tax they impose on local drug dealers and other criminals in their areas. First trial of Ruthie Marshall ended in a mistrial, but in the second trial, the jury convicted her. Showed that after his conviction, he was returned to CDC custody in August of 2015 under a new number of A as in Alpha, X as in X-ray, 5797. And like I said, I've never seen his name on a roster, but that doesn't mean he was never made. If he was made, it must have only been for a short time period, because I show that shortly after that, he debriefed and was housed at Mill Creek State Prison. There was a Charles Dwit Marts, aka Charlie, who was out of Paris, California. I show that he was in the Air Force during the Vietnam era and may have had a B number in CDC. I show that he was an Aryan Brotherhood member as well as a Mexican Mafia associate, and eventually was sent to the feds under BOP number 00914-025. I show that he was at Leavenworth in 1987 and then was released, at which time he murdered Mexican Mafia member John Lopez and his girlfriend on March 31st, 1990 in a Los Angeles motel. However, I don't believe he was ever charged in that case. I do show, though, that he killed his son by the act of arson in 1991, and I believe had some mental health issues. I show that he went protective custody after that and was housed in Springfield in 2003 and Terre Haute in 2006, both known as often being protective custody facilities. I show that he was released in January 2010 and died on November 18, 2012. There was Norman, aka Little Matt Matthews, who I show was an Aryan Brotherhood associate under BOP number 88752-132. However, I show he was involved in the homicide in November 1978 at Marion, so he may have earned his rock then. However, I show that Tommy Silverstein was blamed and convicted for that killing. I understand that Little Matt was also present when Tommy Lamb was killed by the AB and is pictured here with the brothers. I believe then he was moved to the ADX, but died on June 21st, 2012. Robert Bobby Mays from Paris. I'm not sure what his BOP number was, but he must have been at least an Aryan Brotherhood associate, because I show that he was involved in the murder of William Puppet McKinney, who I'll discuss in the next episode. And I also show that he was involved in attempted murder of an individual I believe was a DC Black by the name of Black Piggyback, both on Barry Mills' orders. Let me know if anybody's ever heard of a Robert Bobby Mays out of Paris, California. There was Donald Popeye Maza, who was considered to be one of the founders and longtime leader of Public Enemy Number One. Understand that he grew up in Long Beach, but then moved to Orange County, which is where some people probably get the idea that P9 started in Long Beach. I show that he was popped for assault with a deadly weapon and robbery around 1994 when he was housed at Orange County Jail. Now, I've had some people say that he started Peni in the late 1980s when he had been about 18 years old. I do show, though, he was also arrested for a dope case in 1994, housed at the Orange County Jail, then sent to CDC under J number 17613. I then show he was released but had a couple of parole violations in 1996. He then was convicted of attempted 187 in 1999, at which time he was already operating as an associate of the Aryan Brotherhood. I show that he got out but had a parole violation in 2002. I then show that he had another attempted 187 in the year 2003. I understand that he founded a band called Dead Friends and was indicted on the 2019 RICO case, which included 16 members and associates of AB, including commission members Ronnie Yandel and Danny Troxel. Mazo was charged with agreeing to kill AB member Michael Thumper Tripp on orders from Renegade Yandel. Meanwhile, I believe that Popeye was looking for a way out, and he tried to get released on the grounds that he was at risk from catching COVID-19, and that he was now a reborn Christian. Donald Popeye Maza pled guilty to charges on the RICO indictment. He definitely knew this was a major decision and knew that he would be hunted for the rest of his life, always looking over his shoulder. I show that he was set for sentencing on May 6, 2024, which is just a few days ago. And finally, we have Michael P., aka Big Mac McKinney, who's out of Sacramento. I show he was involved with the AB back in the 1970s under B number 94093. When I believe he was convicted of assault with a deadly weapon. I show that he was at San Quentin in 1984 when he got an assault by prisoner charge. I showed then he was housed at Tehachapi Shoe in 1987 and evidently got out because he was popped with a felon in possession of a firearm in 1988 and was sent to the feds under BOP number 04198-097. He then became very active at Marion Prison and was soon named to the AB Council. I showed he was involved in ordering multiple murders while housed there. And he was indicted on the 2002 RICO case. He was housed at the LA Metro Detention Center during that trial, was convicted, and is currently housed at the ADX in Florence, Colorado. He is not scheduled for release until at least July 2034. And so, that's all I have for part one of the M last names. I hope you enjoyed this episode and learned something new. I know I'm always learning something new from many of you, so keep those comments coming, but always remember to keep them respectful, and I will reply in the same manner. For now, this is Gabe Morales signing off for Gangsters, Cops, and Politicians. An Aryan brother is without a care. He walks where the weak and heartless won't dare. And if by chance he should stumble or lose control, his brothers are there to help reach his goal. For a worthy brother, no need is too great. He need not ask, fulfillment's his fate. For an Aryan brother, death holds no fear. Vengeance will be his, through his brothers still here. For the brotherhood means just what it implies. A brother's a brother till that brother dies. And if he is loyal and never lost faith, in each brother's heart will always be a place. So a brother I am, and will always be, even after my life is taken away from me. I'll lie down content, knowing I stood, head held high, walking proud in the brotherhood.
People that are older know what time it is, man. It's just business.
Yeah.